The quest of two congresswomen to get into Israel and see what's going on in terms of treatment of Palestinians, visit family, all of that continues. Yesterday, you might know, on Thursday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blocked Rashida Tlaib, congresswoman, and another Democratic Congress member, Ilhan Omar, from visiting Israel and the Palestinian territories, citing the women's support of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel. So that was what we knew yesterday, and of course on the show we broke that down. And it was a fairly unprecedented thing, not only that they made the decision inside of the Israeli government to do this, but also that the president put out an approving tweet encouraging a foreign government to block members of our government from visiting. Today, though, I guess got into a bit more of a personal form in regard to Representative Rashida Tlaib. Netanyahu government today said it would allow Rashida Tlaib to enter the country to visit her grandmother were she to file a humanitarian request, which the congresswoman later did. Tlaib pledged initially not to vocalize her support for the BDS movement while in the region. She eventually shifted on that and explained it, saying that she wanted to make sure that she could speak the truth if visiting Israel. So initially she agreed to certain restrictions on free speech, or I would say her responsibility as a member of our government to reflect accurately what she sees while traveling abroad. But she decided that cost was too much, even at the risk of not seeing her family members. We're gonna have messages both from Rashida Tlaib and also from the Israeli government. But what did you think about this development? Also, Maz, about the entire debacle?
Yeah. So I don't know what I would have done. I think she was put in a really, really hard spot. If government told me you're allowed to come here, but you're not allowed to state your real opinions when you get here, especially if you're a US representative and a lot of cameras will be on you, and this is your one chance to speak to the Palestinians, to the Israelis, to the whole region, well, that's a hell of a thing to try to block you from doing. And I would want to say no under almost any circumstance, but I say almost because what if it was your last opportunity to see your grandmother? Well, Jesus, then I don't know what I would do, right? But I do know this, saying no, I'm not gonna agree to your oppressive terms, even if it costs me seeing my grandmother, is an incredibly strong move. Yeah. And you have to give her tremendous respect for doing that.
Yeah, and I think actually, I bet you that she had a discussion with her family and her grandmother probably said, I don't want you to do this, because my guess is that the grandmother's living in those situations, and she says, "I'd rather have you have a voice and express what's really going on here." Yeah. This whole thing, when you go back to it, the idea of trying to stop someone from having a critical voice in what's supposed to be a democracy in the Middle East. It just puts the whole thing, it's a sham then, because the way they blocked them from coming there, it sounds more like what a dictatorial Arab government would do, or what Iran would do, or what China would do. And for you to be critical of those other countries and then go ahead and do the same thing that you're saying those countries do, which is to stop a critical voice from even coming here, that to me is the height of hypocrisy.
Well, look, we got to have a real discussion about when we stop calling Israel a democracy, because do they have some wonderful parts of their system that's quite liberal and like a democracy? Absolutely. So there's voting, and even Muslims get to vote. But now Netanyahu is even challenging that notion. Their courts are oftentimes quite tough on their politicians and holding Netanyahu accountable for corruption, etc. That's not concluded yet, but they've been tough in the past on corruption, way more so than America has. On the other hand, there's certain things you're not allowed to say. And if you're used to the American form of government where we have First Amendment rights, and you go to Israel and they say, no, if you say that, you're gonna be in a lot of legal trouble. Yeah. Well, okay, that's certainly a strike against freedom. And then, oh yeah, that little asterisk of imprisoning millions of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and West Bank, let alone the thousands of ones actually in physical prisons. Gaza's an open air prison. They don't control their borders, they can't leave. And every part of that is an occupation, it's an oppression, it's state violence. So, I mean, was America a democracy when we had slavery? That's an interesting question. It was for some, but it wasn't for women. It wasn't certainly for the slaves. It wasn't for a lot of people in this country. And so Israel's in a situation where they don't have slavery, but they have imprisoned, in essence, millions of innocent Palestinians, and they will not let them go. They just say, no, we think by inherently, you as Muslims, as Palestinians, are too dangerous and to ever trust you with borders and ruling yourself. So we're never ever going to let you go. That is Netanyahu's policy. It's not every Israelis by a long shot, but he just won re-election. So I don't know. So I think just constantly calling it a democracy is, at a minimum, requires a massive asterisk.
By the way, real quickly, for Trump to weigh in and say because these congresswomen are critical of Israel, you shouldn't let them in Israel, then by that logic, we shouldn't let Trump in America because he's been very critical of America. That's what got him where he is.
Yeah.
So he's not supporting freedom of speech, and again, it's very hypocritical because we should be able to criticize these places, and if he's not going to stand behind the congresswomen, no matter what side they're on, then that it shows his dictatorial tendencies.
Yeah, just real quick on that, Maz. We had our shot. You're getting me to rethink Israel's position. When he went to Scotland to visit his golf course during the primaries and during the election, we'd be like, what do you mean make America great again? What do you mean again? You seems like your whole campaign is based on criticizing America. That's it, you're banned. Stay in Scotland forever.
Yeah.
Sorry, Scotland.
Yeah, and by the way, and if it was the sort of thing where it's just, well, we're not supposed to insult our allies. I mean, do we want to go through what Trump has said about literally every ally we have? I mean, do we really want to see those quotes? Come on.
Germany,
let alone other
Canada,
countries. Exactly.
Mexico, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah. Trump goes to the cities that were just struck by terror attacks inside of the US and insults their mayors to their face. Okay, that's his idea of decorum. So some of what you were actually talking about, Rashida Tlaib, in explaining her decision on social media, she referenced some of that, saying, silencing me and treating me like a criminal is not what she wants from me, speaking of her grandmother. It would kill a piece of me. I've decided that visiting my grandmother under these oppressive conditions stands against everything I believe in, fighting against racism, oppression, and injustice. Now the thing is, because she initially agreed to it and then pulled out, every disingenuous right-winger, and some people probably don't consider themselves right-winger on the internet, are attacking her, saying that effectively she was using her grandmother as a pawn. I don't see how did she win in this, but in any event, it's not just random people on social media. It includes literally the person she was coordinating with in Israeli government for this visit, the Minister of the Interior, who tweeted, Representative Tlaib just tweeted that she won't be coming to Israel. Just yesterday, she sent me a letter asking to visit her 90-year-old grandmother, saying it might be my last chance to meet her. He goes on to say, I approved her request as a gesture of goodwill on a humanitarian basis, but it was just a provocative request aimed at bashing the state of Israel. Apparently, her hate for Israel overcomes her love for her grandmother.
Hey, wait, look, now I'm really pissed. Hey, you're the one imprisoning her grandmother.
Yeah.
If those territories were not occupied, then grandma could come over here. They could be free. You're the one completely preventing her freedom. And then you have the audacity to talk about how she's using her grandmother as a pawn. You're the ones who are using all of those people as pawns. Hey, you must say that boycott, divestment, and sanctions is a bad idea, or shut up about it. You're not allowed to say anything if you ever want to see your grandmother again.
Yeah.
And you're telling us she's using her as a pawn? No, you're literally holding her hostage and saying you're not allowed to say the truth if you want to see your grandmother before she dies. That's kind of sick game that you're playing, and then you want to talk about pawns.
Yeah,
give me a break.
And he used her grandmother in that tweet against her, so he's using the grandmother as a pawn.
Yeah, and also when I initially saw those tweets, I thought, what? I mean, this has got to be a fake account or something, because this isn't a pundit. This is a member of the Israeli government saying that. And I thought, what if it's just some random shady person on Twitter? So I looked into their background and I found out that they are a representative of the government, but they are incredibly shady, because back in 1999, that individual was convicted of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust and served 22 months in Israeli prison for accepting over $150,000 in bribes. But please preach to us more.
As Scaramucci said, the fish rots from the head down. And Netanyahu is corrupt. The Israeli government believes he's corrupt. They're investigating thoroughly, for which I just gave them credit. And so is it surprising that he hired a bunch of criminals? That's exactly what Trump does here. Yeah. Trump hired a whole bunch of criminals, some of whom have been caught and are already in prison. Some of are in mid-process, etc. The fish rots from the head down. So look, the right-wing government in Israel has lost its mind. I mean, Now we're not even talking about two-state solutions. There's no solution at all. In the old days, look, there was a lot of things wrong, a million things wrong on all sides, right? But at least you had guys like Yitzhak Rabin who considered it. And then the right wing in Israel assassinated him. It was the most successful terrorist strike maybe in human history. They had the peace deal, they were about to do it. And the right wing's like, oh, I got an idea, let's use violence. And by the way, back then, Netanyahu was a guy actually roiling everybody up. Oh, Rabin's a traitor, Rabin's terrible, you gotta do something about Rabin. And then somebody assassinates the leader of Israel who was gonna do peace. And then Netanyahu was like, well, I guess we can't do peace. You gotta go with a warmonger like me. And so, look, you know what, Israel, if you wanna prove, I'm talking about the right-wing government of Israel. You wanna prove that you're a humanitarian, you're a democracy, etc., why don't you let the grandmother out? Why don't you pay for her ticket? Or you don't even have to pay for the ticket. Here, I'll raise money from our audience to pay for a ticket right now, okay? And while you're at it, why don't you let other Palestinians out? Oh, you won't because you're not really a democracy and you're oppressing those people. Well, you're occupying them. And now, by the way, sorry, John, these right-wing pundits in America are like, oh no, well, really, are they really occupied? What are you talking about? If they're not occupied, what are they? Can they just cross the border right now? Well, no, you're not allowed to cross the border. Palestinians by definition are dangerous, right? No, that is a racist position to have. They say, well, you know what? I'm not sure they all acknowledge that. They got to get every single person to acknowledge that Israel has a right to exist. Does Israel have a right to exist? Of course. But meanwhile, look at the incredible irony and hypocrisy. Since every one of the millions of people here hasn't said that I'm allowed to exist, I will now, well, for the last 50, 60 years, I've not allowed you to exist. But wait a minute, Israel already exists, but you will not allow Palestine to exist as a country, and then you claim you're the aggrieved party? Well, some of them said that theoretically maybe we shouldn't exist, but in reality, I've oppressed them, crushed them, and not allowed their existence as a state. No, the guilty party here is abundantly clear. If you can't see it, it's because you're biased. And you think, well, I mean, look, the Israelis are great and the Palestinians should be oppressed for the rest of time. If you believe that, then you know what? That is a racist position. Sorry, not sorry. That's a racist position.
So if we could turn just to potentially the future of our relationship there, it's probably going to continue the way it has been literally for decades. But there are some people who are questioning it in some of the ways that you just did. Actually, these are names that you're going to be familiar with. One is one of the representatives who's banned from visiting the country. Ilhan Omar tweeted, "As many of my colleagues have stated in the last 24 hours, we give Israel more than $3 billion in aid every year. This is predicated on their being an important ally in the region and the quote only democracy in the Middle East. Denying visits to duly elected members of Congress is not consistent with being either an ally or a democracy. We should be leveraging that aid to stop the settlements and ensure full rights for Palestinians." So that's, you have a congresswoman, you have someone in the House, but also in the Senate, Bernie Sanders, I believe earlier today, said this.
We have a president who tragically is a racist, is a xenophobe, and who is a religious bigot. But the idea that a member of the United States Congress cannot visit a nation, which, by the way, we support to the tune of billions and billions of dollars, is clearly an outrage. And if Israel doesn't want members of the United States Congress to visit their country to get a firsthand look at what's going on, and I've been there many, many times, but if he doesn't want members to visit, maybe he can respectfully decline the billions of dollars that we give to Israel. All that I am saying is that we need a Middle East policy which is even-handed, which protects the independence and the safety of Israel, but also shows respect to the Palestinian people, many of whom in Gaza and elsewhere are suffering incredibly. Unemployment rate off the charts. People cannot leave their community.
Like a boss. Okay, look, the funny thing is we give Bernie Sanders tremendous credit there for saying things that are super obvious, but it's only because the rest of Washington is insane. And so he says we should be even-handed. They're like, whoa, controversial. How is that controversial? We should have two states. Whoa, I don't know about that. How is that controversial? Hey, if you say that US Congress members are not allowed into your country, maybe our billions of dollars in aid also should not be allowed into your country. You can't have it both ways. You spit at our Congress members and they say, but I demand the money. Who gets to do that other than Israel? Even Canada couldn't get away with that. The UK couldn't get away with that. But Israel gets to say, here, and if your Congress people come to our country, we're gonna make sure that they shut up and they're not allowed to say anything. Meanwhile, send me the $3 billion. Who gets to say that? That's insanity. And conservatives, I thought you cared about fiscal discipline. But when it comes to Israel, we've given them $140 billion and they misleadingly call it aid. Some of it is in financial and economic aid. What happened to standing up with your own bootstraps, by the way? Well, we could send bootstraps. No. That's for poor Americans. You spit on poor Americans, but you give Israelis anything they want. Okay, but that is the minority. The majority of the money is in military aid. So why are we financing their military? They have a gigantic military. They have nukes. They can pulverize all of the Arab nations. They could literally nuke all of the Arab nations around them. I hope to God that it never comes to that. But why are we giving hard-earned tax dollar money to a country that doesn't even allow Congress members to go? That is an obvious thing to say. But of course, as usual, Bernie Sanders is the only one with the courage to say the things that are obviously true. And I'm gonna add one more thing to it. Look, when he says we want the sanctity and the independence and safety of Israel, no one disagrees with that. He's got family members in Israel. Why would he want to put them in danger? I want Israel to be perfectly safe and secure. I also want them to have the moral high ground. Right now, they are not safe and secure because they're saying, you know what? You, millions of Palestinians, you have no hope. You have no hope of ever reaching a diplomatic solution. You have no hope of reaching a legal solution or an economic solution. Now, what do you think that's gonna lead to? It's gonna lead to violence against Israel. And moral high ground, what a joke. Look, BDS, I'm gonna have a debate about it on the show, and it's an interesting thing, but this was a really stupid political move by Netanyahu's government. Because what did it do? It sparked a giant conversation about, hey, maybe we should do BDS, because they're not listening to anything else. But if you say boycott, divestment, and sanction, all of a sudden, they're like, wait a minute, what do you do? Don't do that, don't do that, right? Oh, I see, we got your attention. So that's interesting. So maybe we should do that a lot more.
But it also, politically speaking, on Trump's side, he was probably playing, it's more of the demonization of the Muslims and the Rashida Tlaibs and the Ilhan Omars. He's playing to his base in many ways. And I know that, I believe AIPAC came out against the move. So I don't know, maybe he was trying to play and get more Jewish Americans on his side. Definitely getting his base to be around him and go, look, these Muslims hate the Jews, and so again, it's a play that he's doing, and I don't know if it helped him with his base or not. I'm guessing it does, to demonize these two again and demonize these people. And so it's a shame that people that support Trump aren't seeing that as openly. It's such a simple game to play, to go, look, these Muslims with the thing on their head, they,
Yeah, but Maz, I'll disagree with that on two counts. One, first of all, I don't think it's a play for Jewish American voters. Jews vote 70% Democratic in this country. They're the second most reliable bloc for the Democratic Party after African Americans. And there's not that many Jewish Americans, so he'd barely get any votes. No, it's a play for his evangelical base, right, who are the great majority of which are bigots and racists. So when he says, these Muslims, Tlaib and Omar, they love it. They're like, yes, I hate Muslims too. Finally, a guy willing to say it as it is.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And so that's the play that he's making. But he's already got that base locked up. I mean, who else hates Muslims and Latinos and blacks and Jews as much as Trump doesn't? I mean, we've never had a politician filled with that much hatred and fear. So the right-wing evangelical voters are like, yes! They've been waiting for this guy for decades now. So it's not a smart move. I know some people think it's a distraction, et cetera, to try to distract from the stock market crash, et cetera, et cetera.
It's to buy him some time to buy Greenland.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, it's mediocre politics for Trump. It's the same old playbook. Go to hatred and fear. Go to hatred and fear. Does he really care what they say about Israel? No, it's just an anti-Muslim play. For Netanyahu, though, it was a really stupid political move. It was much more damaging to him than it was to Trump. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.